back to Ottawa Experts. I'm your host, Barbara Balfour, and on tonight's show, we're giving you a lesson in modern etiquette so you can learn how to behave yourself with finesse in all sorts of situations, whether you're in the boardroom or on the plane or over at someone's house for the first time. We've got Blais Comeau, who is joining us tonight to share her expertise with us. Thanks again for joining us. Before we went to break, Julie, we talked a little bit about food and dining and place settings. I had a few more questions I wanted to ask you on that topic. If your host invites you out for a meal, should you always be cognizant of the dollar amount that they're spending on themselves? Should you only order, for example, an entree that is equal to or lesser in value than what they're ordering? What are some of the potential minefields there that we need to navigate?
That is certainly a minefield, and especially in 2016, where per diems and expense accounts are a lot less than what it used to be. Actually, on the flip side of that, as the host, when you are the person that is inviting, here too, Barbara, I would recommend that you set yourself up for success. And what that means is that you're going to go to a restaurant, you're going to go to a venue that you know very well, but more importantly, where they know you and they recognize you. So what you could do is that you're going to go to the restaurant ahead of time and you're going to set up the menu. So you may say to the maitre d', to the manager, to the server, well, these are the options that I would like. Today, you know, I'd like to spend X amount of dollars, including maybe a glass of wine for my guest and I, etc. And most of the restaurants, and they're really, really good here in Ottawa, will probably make you up a nice menu card with limited choices. So that way, as a host, you're not going to have a big surprise should your guests not follow along in your footsteps and stay safely within the boundaries of what you're going to be ordering. So that's a great tip. Go somewhere where they know you, set it up ahead of time, make it as easy as possible.
So they'll actually customize a menu for you, print it off and give it to you?
Yes, it's just the cost of like printing like two simple menus, and the choices are very clear. The official menu never comes to the table, and the two pieces of paper that are there don't even have prices on it.
So what are some restaurants in town that do that for you?
Oh, just about anywhere. Like it's something that's very simple to do, and it's not that well known. And also what I would recommend is, as a host, you give your credit card ahead of time.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yes, with e-receipts, they will send you everything afterwards. You let them know ahead of time how much of a tip you want to give them, and then, you know, it's all done.
That's nothing worse than fighting for the bill when you've chosen to take someone out for dinner.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And if you are the host, you want to avoid that situation. That is embarrassing, and, you know, as you say, like it ends on a bad note. So you want to make sure that the bill never even comes to the table. In a scenario where you were not able to leave your credit card ahead of time, what you want to do, and I'm sure that a lot of our viewers have done this before, you're gently going to go maybe like just before dessert, and you're going to go and settle up the bill so that it does not come to the table.
So what if you're going to someone's house for the first time? Do you bring a gift? If so, what's the monetary value? And do you only bring a gift the first time you go to someone's home?
You know, etiquette has to do with a lot of rituals, a lot of customs. And these days, host gifts are very, very popular. But in reality, the rule of etiquette for hosting is, when you're invited to someone's house, the rule is to reciprocate. You should usually reciprocate within the season, within probably about 3 months. But I don't know about Barbara, but like life is so quick these days. Who knows if I'll have time, if you invite me here probably for the beginning of summer, if I'll have time to host you again before Labor Day. So what I do to disengage myself from the obligation of inviting you to my home, I'm going to show up with a hostess gift. So that way we're fair and square. So that's the origin of that.
I see, that's very interesting. We talked a little bit about some of the foods to avoid when you're out and about and trying to make an impression. Obviously, Spaghetti with tomato sauce is a big one, especially as we enter the summer season and we tend to wear lighter colors than usual.
Yeah.
What are some other foods, maybe some snack foods that you should avoid to not find yourself in an uncomfortable situation or with stuff down your brand new suit?
Yeah, it depends where you are. It depends what you're doing. If you're invited somewhere in the Maritimes for a lobster bake and you're on the shore, you're at the beach, you're wearing jeans, you're flip-flops and your favorite hoodie, and everybody's having lobster with their hands, well, that's how it is, remember.
Do as the Romans do.
Exactly, exactly. So it all depends on where you are. So usually the venue will dictate how to act, right? There will be a certain code of behavior. Usually the time of day would also impact. And a lot of times people want to know, how should I dress? Well, keep in mind the venue, the time of day, and what the activity, what the event, what is it all about? And when somebody really, really wants to know, there'll never be a faux pas by asking. You know, my maternal grandmother, Barbara, was Florina Selva. She wasn't a very educated woman, but she was very, very curious. And she would ask people questions. And what she would say to me when I would say, you know, Grandma, I'm not sure what to do. And she would always say, you know, Julie, it's not that complicated. When in doubt, find out. So if you're invited to this fancy dinner and you've never had escargot, and I'm sure some of our viewers can probably remember the Pretty Woman scene.
Oh yes, that's
right?
my favorite scene.
Isn't it? And just a great movie. And so, you know, you would say, well, I've never had escargot before. Like, how should I go about this? So when in doubt, find out. You're going somewhere, not too sure about the dress code? When in doubt, find out. First time that you're being presented with chopsticks or anything, when in doubt, find out.
And isn't part of etiquette not just about not making blunders, but also when you do make that blunder, or when you see someone making that blunder, pretending it never happened or not acknowledging it? Like that scene that you mentioned in Pretty Woman, when Julia Roberts sends the escargot flying, the waiter just kind of snaps it up and acts like nothing happened.
Yeah, and you know, the gentleman there, the elderly gentleman, oh, it happens all the time, right? So everybody can relax. Let me give you a little anecdote of etiquette folklore. So let's go back in time and let's go back to the 50s. And we're at Buckingham Palace, where Her Majesty, our Queen Elizabeth II, is hosting a banquet. And she's hosting a banquet for Edith Piaf, the famous singer. So we're towards the end of the meal, and you have these very elegant servers that are probably wearing tails and white gloves, and they're holding these silver trays. And they come out and they serve each one of us a small bowl. And in that bowl is a clear liquid.
Oh, I can see where this is going.
Right? And you can see a fine, very thin slice of lemon. So Madame Piaf takes the bowl, smells, and begins to drink. What do you think Her Majesty Elizabeth II does?
The same thing.
She drinks. And then, so what would all of us that are attending this beautiful banquet, what would we do? We would just drink along. So you're absolutely right. It's not about making other people feel uncomfortable, but the goal of etiquette is to bring a certain level, right? Everybody on par, because everybody will be doing similar things, pretty much the same thing. So what we can focus on is the people. We can get to know each other because we're all in sync. That's the goal.
I love that story. That's a great story. I want to move on to technology, smartphones, email, texting. First of all, smartphones. They drive me crazy.
Yeah.
When should we turn them off?
Well, as soon as you're in the company of somebody else, because let's pretend this is a smartphone and we put it there. Like, and I come in and I put it there. All of a sudden, Barbara, we're in a ménage à trois. And I didn't ask you permission to invite this piece of technology, and it's going to beep, it's going to vibrate, and all of a sudden, it's going to get all of our attention. So FaceTime, what we want to have is that real FaceTime. We want to have that connection, not the Apple kind. What we want is FaceTime instead of screen time. So it should be turned off in the company of others. And of course, we understand that there could be exceptions. Maybe you're a lifeline to a loved one at home. Maybe you're waiting for some information for the business that you're conducting. So when I'm going to get there, I'm going to say, Barbara, you know, I'm expecting a call. You're going to let the person know when that call comes in. You'll excuse yourself. You'll be gone just a few minutes. Come on back and keep going.
So when someone calls you or texts you, how long is it appropriate to wait before calling or texting them back in this age where everyone is expected to be available 24/7?
Yes, well, it all depends. You know, in business, when you have a new client, when there's somebody new that you're conducting business with, you should validate with them what their expectation is. First of all, would they prefer receiving a phone call? Would they prefer getting an email? Some people want texting. Some people even like to communicate by private message on Facebook. So validate that. Within a team at work, what's the appropriate response time? Used to be when I would teach email etiquette, we were talking about a delay of 72 hours. Like everybody at home is going, what? 72 hours? That's 3 days, Julie. And within a team, usually an email within the same day. So general rule of thumb, when you're beginning a relationship, at first should be an acknowledgement within 24 hours. 24 hours. And sometimes you need to do research. And I'm thinking maybe an email or a phone call. You know what, Barbara, I'm on it, but give me a couple of days and I'll get back to you. But I wanted you to know that I did receive your email, that I did get your phone call. So it depends, but validate at the onset.
Interesting. You know, I heard a saying and I just loved it. The phone is there for my convenience, not the caller's, but I don't think people think of it that way anymore.
No, it depends. It really depends on your relationship. Let's say that your client is elderly. That person may want to even have coffee, see you face to face and have a coffee with you as opposed to a text, as opposed to anything else. I'll give you a very concrete example. My father just turned 80 years old, and a couple of years ago, he had one of the smartphones. He had to get it, right, to conduct business. And my niece was trying to get a hold of him by texting. Well, he would be on the phone with his secretary, and he would hear beep, 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 and he would say, Mish, I have to let you go because my battery's dying. So he would always hang up, but all along, Sasha was trying to text him. My father didn't know he had texted him. Maybe he did, but he didn't pay any attention to it. So it's really important to validate the expectations of communication.
Do you think that phone conversation is a lost art? I've noticed that people prefer to text and email these days. A lot of people won't pick up the phone, they screen their calls. I've even heard of some companies actually hiring individuals like yourselves to come into call centers, for example, and teach people how to talk on the phone.
Yes, and there's a certain level of empathy that's getting lost with all the time that we're spending in front of our screens. And this is not Julie says or the etiquette expert says. These are studies that are done by psychologists where society is evolving and the younger generation, the children, are having difficulty decoding the face, all this non-verbal expressions, and also the intonations that we hear on the telephone. So is it a lost art? I don't know. Some people are still having phone conversations. And as a service provider, though, what I can assure you, it's certainly up to me to adapt to what the people that I serve would like, to use the appropriate medium for the appropriate means. So sometimes a phone call is better. If you're running late, definitely pick up the phone. Sending a text is going to put you in a situation where the person's going to text back, when are you coming in? And sometimes it could be unsafe. So pick up the phone, explain to the person that you're being delayed, let them know when you're going to be there, and if they say, you know what, chances are I may be gone, you have the chance to readjust your plans. So it depends on the situation.
And isn't it interesting in this day and age where so many people are sending emails that something as old-fashioned as picking up the phone and calling someone might get you more immediate results?
Absolutely, absolutely. Think about it also for the people that are cold calling. With email, it's like we have this sea of email. It's not uncommon for me, a solopreneur, as we're now called these days, to get 50 emails a day. People write to me from all over the world their sticky situations. I have a blog in the Huffington Post, and when I'm going to give a conference or workshop or what have you. So, and the usual number is about 75 for each employee. So it's this vast sea. But how many phone calls a day do you get these days? So it could be a way to bring attention.
Mm-hmm. Is it rude to take a photo of your food and put it on Instagram?
Fascinating. If you were to ask the restaurant owners, the managers, who maybe would flip, as they call it, tables, maybe 3 times, 4 times during the evening, because of this new phenomena of social media, I'm going to take a picture of my food. I'm going to take a picture of me, the person that's with me, and the food. I'm going to take a picture of me and my server. Well, 1 click, 2 click, 3 clicks, maybe now we've extended our meal by 20 minutes, not counting that I'm texting, the other person's texting, so the food comes, it's not hot, it's too hot, what have you. So we've lengthened the amount of time that we're spending in the restaurant. And so it's certainly having challenges. Is it appropriate? It depends. But what I can tell you, some venues are now forbidding technology.
Really?
When you enter their restaurant, you cannot text, you cannot take pictures, and you cannot receive any calls.
That's kind of refreshing.
Isn't it? Yeah. So you can focus on the people.
That's such a novel concept.
Makes sense, doesn't it? Yeah. And you're spending good money out there.
Of course, of course. I want to talk about Facebook. People take it so seriously if you decline their friend request, for example, or you unfriend them or you block them. What are some sticky social networking situations people get into, and how do you avoid them?
Exactly those. I think that from a social media perspective, there's Facebook, there's LinkedIn, and there's so many of them. So to use the proper channel, the proper media, for the reason that you want to be there. From my perspective, I love LinkedIn. LinkedIn is made especially for conducting professional business. It should be, in essence, a mutual connection. In Facebook, it's your friends, but you have the right to decline. You have the right to decline. Who comes into your world, who gets to see into your world, it's up to you. And don't take it personally, it should be up to the person to decide who they want to have, what kind of relationship they want to have with. Now, you've asked me about sticky situations. Of course, with family members, there can be a lot of hurt feelings, frustrations, all kinds of sticky situations. So really think about it before you unfriend someone. And 24-hour rule, maybe 48 hours, something's happened in the family, and then you go right to your Facebook. That's it. I'm blocking them. Think about it. Talk about it with a friend. Talk about it with your spouse,
It's interesting how that can be seen as a real act of war, unfriending someone on Facebook.
Absolutely. It's like you're declaring war, and they won't know it right away, but then if they investigate a little bit, they may find out. They may find out.
What about video conferencing, Skype, FaceTime? What are some things people need to know?
Well, first of all, you have to know that you have to dress fully, because the doorbell could ring.
Forget that you're not wearing
Exactly.
pants.
You're wearing shorts. You're not wearing pants. You're wearing your boxers. So be aware of that. Be aware also of the background. In my office, I have a setup where I have my diplomas. I have a plant. It's very tidy. People will judge, Barbara, from what they see during that video conferencing. It's pretty much like a TV reality. It's not just about showing up. Do your hair, put on your makeup. You should look like what you look like if you were conducting business face-to-face with that person. So that's the visual aspect. Also, keep in mind whatever's going on in the background. If you happen to have somebody that comes over and mows your lawn, first of all, lucky you, right? Well, if he comes every Wednesday morning at 10 o'clock and you scheduled video conferencing, what are they going to hear in the background?
Not something they want to hear.
No, the pets. Is it okay for Fluffy, Muffy to come and jump on your desk? If you work for SPCA, absolutely. But generally speaking, no. If you're a new mom, is it okay? Like, how are you going to be able to focus on the business? Most of us that are moms would say, yes, I'm probably able to. But if your child has been sick, maybe you should reschedule. It depends. So be cognizant of the sights, the sounds that are going to be coming out through video conferencing, because really is TV reality.